So today we're going to be talking about error prevention. Now I'm going to tell you a little story about this guy. His name is Johnny John Johnson, and he's an average everyday person like you and I. Well, maybe a little on the skinny side, but that's okay. One day he goes to work on his computer and opens up Microsoft Outlook to write a very important email to his boss at Beef Tacos Incorporated regarding his planned absence for experimental brain surgery. After 7 hours of labor-intensive writing, he successfully completes his email. But before hitting send, he needs to go make some carrot juice for an unspecified reason. However, while he's in the kitchen, his cat jumps up on his keyboard and incidentally writes the entirety of William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet into the body of his email. After returning with his cup of carrot juice, he presents to send his email. But oh no, just as his finger hits the send button, he realizes his mistake in not checking before he hits send. Within a few minutes, his boss replies telling him that he's fired for plagiarism. Very sad about that. And then he gets very mad. He's so furious that he throws his cat in the garbage. Then shortly after, the cat police show up and arrest him for animal abuse. And Johnny Johnson is now in jail, all because of a simple error he made that he could not go back on or prevent with the knowledge he had started with. Now, obviously, this is very satirical, but what if you did actually send an email that you didn't mean to send? Or what if that email did end up having some negative repercussions? Outlook doesn't have an undo option. Gmail does, on the other hand. And so that's a good example of error prevention. In a design sense, that's all the little details or features that help stop you from screwing up, because people are imperfect and screw up all the time. And as a digital artist, I know this because Control-Z are my two favorite keys. But as designers, we are capable of designing tools and features that so that errors happen less often, or if they do happen, they're not as costly. And so that goes back to the two gulfs, the gulf of execution and the gulf of evaluation. The error occurs when either of the two gulfs do not have significant bridging with them. You may either make mistakes in the execution stage, acting in ways that you think are correct but not relevant to the design, or you may make a mistake in the evaluation stage where you'll have difficulty identifying what elements are necessary to complete your goal, or whether your actions have brought you closer to achieving it. Because of all of this, because all of this is related to you, your interpretations and your actions, the entire concept of error prevention hinges on our mental models, our knowledge of the interface as a user. From our knowledge of the sites of the world around us, too, we explore the internet, calling upon what we know, and we make an interface. And when an interface makes it difficult to do the correct thing or figure out where to go, it means that our conceptual model does not, or the conceptual model of the design does not match with our mental model, and we may get lost during the action or the evaluation stage. Thankfully, in many modern interface designs, there are measures taken to prevent new users from getting frustrated at programs that they may not fully understand yet. This in turn allows us it also allows us to make new mental models in order to navigate sites in the future. So how do we know what features will prevent user error? Well, apart from user research, like user testing, there are a number of examples that we can pick out from existing services. So let's look at some examples. First on the execution side. And if you guys knew the answer, you guys can just call it out. You don't have to raise your hands or anything like that. Let's go through some examples. So question one, a few weeks ago, Johnny Johnson went out to write a post for Twitter. He planned to write a 392-page essay about the history of snorkeling. However, Twitter caps the length of responses at 280 characters. In this case, what does Twitter tell you that what does Twitter do to tell you that you have surpassed the character limit? Oops.
So Twitter, I believe,
Um,
highlight
it
your
highlights your text with red, and then the circle at the bottom shows that you have 0 characters left to write.
That's right. It gives you a warning before an error is made. These are commonly found in programs where you'll be typing out something where you must meet specific requirements, like if an email address it needs to be valid. If it does not warn you during the process, it will create an error message and to tell you that the service will not work with the provided information. And so here's another one. Johnny Johnson wishes to sign into his Yahoo account on his phone, typing in his username and password. For some reason, he briefly believed that his username was, I have an unusual obsession with ranch dressing with a whole bunch of sevens. However, his device has a feature that can help prevent him from typing in the incorrect login information. What is this feature?
Like it'll highlight everything in like red, and then on top it's like incorrect username or password.
That is close. That is more related to the one beforehand, but with a lot of Apple devices, it will have automatic fill-ins for the username and password. And so that allows you to act without being burdened by memory. The memory burden is, if you're able to bypass it at any point, helps the users navigate the sites more easy. And lastly, for the execution side, Johnny Johnson needs to clear up some space on his computer. He opens up his files and selects 433 various pictures of Dryerlint and moves them to the trash. However, when he hits the delete permanently button, he remembers that he only has 432 pictures of Dryerlint, so one of them must be his college thesis. What prevented him from losing that important file?
A warning popped up beforehand that said, "Are you sure you want to delete these files?"
Correct. The confirmation window that pops up before you delete anything. Confirmations of any destructive actions are essential, as destroying important things would be heavily consequential. And so now on to the evaluation stage. Oops. Johnny Johnson is exploring a new site he found called beandeliveriersworldwide.com and is looking to try and figure out how to purchase 8 metric tons of pinto beans for a project. He recognizes a button with 3 horizontal lines and discovers the menu by clicking on it. What design principle does this convey? This is a bit of a tricky one. All right, so this conveys the use of conventions, certain symbols that are very common across other sites. And so the using of the same symbols to signify how we do those functions, if they're very common, will make it a lot easier to learn how to use a site when you're first introduced to it. Number 5. Oh, yeah, I keep forgetting about those pictures. Johnny Johnson is about to print 70,000 flyers to spread awareness about the rights of pine cones. What feature will help him ensure that his print is correct? Anybody?
I believe when you control P, you have like a dialog box to select like your print options or like how you want it to print.
Right, that's the print preview. And so giving certain previews to the results before you do them will help you in decreasing errors, kind of like a built-in like check your work step. And also it'll show you the differences of appearance between the editor stage and the presentation stage. And that's how I made sure that all the animations in my presentation worked properly. And so last one, Johnny Johnson likes to push buttons a lot. And so he was excited when he first got his iPhone and saw all those buttons to push on the screen. But why is he able to tell that these rounded shaded squares on his phone are buttons and not like a fill-in box?
I think that's because it creates some kind of drop shadow that makes the button look like they're like floating upwards. So he knows it's a button and not a hole.
And why is he able to tell that that is a button specifically? Like the relationship between it?
Like how a real button is in real life.
Sorry, that one was also a tricky one too. It's the affordance between the user and the shape, because the button is shaded to look like a 3D rounded button that you could actually push. And so it communicates that you could push it rather than a field to be clicked on, which has like the shading in the opposite direction on the inside. That's more of a text field to type in. All right. So good job, everybody. And thank you very much for coming to my TED Talk. I hope you learned something today, and I hope you enjoy my presentation. That's all.